The Cowboys take on the Bears, 8:20 Eastern kickoff this Thursday night. Dallas is the 3.5-point favorite in this matchup here, with the total at 43. Now, we did see a half a point move toward Dallas and movement downward on the total. The Cowboys open -3 up to -3.5. Total open 44 down to 43 flat. 64% of the consensus are leaning toward Dallas. 68% shaded toward the under. Right now, Chicago is plus 145 on the money line. Now, this Chicago defense, they're allowing just 17 points per contest. They rank in the top 5 in points allowed, top 10 in pass yards allowed, top 10 in yards allowed per play. Roquan Smith has got himself 98 tackles on the year, 2 sacks, 5 tackles for loss. Khalil Mack, 6.5 sacks, 10 tackles for loss, 5 forced fumbles. And Kyle Fuller, 3 interceptions from that secondary spot, 10 pass breakups. This Bears squad is 3-1 straight up in their last 4. They also rank in the top 3 in points allowed at home. Now the Cowboys on the other side, losers in their last 2 straight. They've also won just 3 out of their last 9. Jeff Heath and Leighton Vander Esch are listed as questionable. The Cowboys rank 20th in defensive time of possession, and they average just 13 points per contest in their last couple of games. Now, total-wise, the Cowboys are 2-0 to the under in their last couple of contests. Chicago, on the other side, 5 out of their last 6 stayed under the number themselves. I'm going to purchase the half a point, buy it up, and lean toward the home dog in this one. Give me Chicago plus 4 and the under 43 in that game. The next matchup, Ravens taking on the Bills, 1 o'clock Eastern tip-off in Buffalo. The Ravens are -5.5, total 43 and a hook. We saw a 1.5-point fade of Baltimore and movement upward on the total. The Ravens open as the 7-point favorite, down to -5.5, total open 43, up to 43 and a hook. 69% are leaning Baltimore, 87% shaded toward the over. Right now, Buffalo's plus 190 on the money line. The Bills are also 5-0 against the number in their last 5 straight. They're 9-3 straight up overall for the year. They rank in the top 5 in offensive rushing, top 3 in points allowed. Tremaine Edmonds has 90 tackles on the year, 8 tackles for loss. Jordan Phillips, 7.5 sacks, 12 tackles for loss. Tre'Davious White, 4 interceptions on the year and 2 forced fumbles. Singletary and Gore have gone over 11,000. Let's try that again. Singletary and Gore have gone over 1,000 yards rushing combined between the two of them. Buffalo ranks in the top 3 in pass yards allowed, top 10 in defensive time of possession. They're also in the top 5 in yards allowed per play. Baltimore on the other side, just 6-6 against the spread overall for the year, 19th in passing yards per game. And when it comes to this total, Baltimore 60% of the over in their last 5. I'm going to purchase the half a point, buy it up, and lean toward the Bills Mafia. Give me the Bills plus 6 and the over 43.5 in that game. Next matchup, it is going to be Bengals taking on the Browns, 1 o'clock Eastern tip-off in Cleveland. The Browns are -10.5, total 42 and a hook. Saw a half a point move toward Cleveland and moving downward on the total. The Browns open as the 10-point favorite, now -10.5. Total open 43, down to 42 and a hook. 57% are leaning Cincinnati, 51% shaded toward the over. Right now the Bengals are plus 310 on the money line. The Bengals have also successfully covered the number in their last 3 straight. They're covering 67% of their games on the road this year. Tyler Boyd has 758 yards receiving and 3 touchdowns. Carlos Dunlap has 5.5 sacks as well, 12.5 tackles for loss. Now the Browns on the other side, they failed to cover in 6 out of their last 8. They're also covering just 33% of their games at home this year. They rank in the bottom 10 in rush yards allowed, and their defense is allowing 24 points per contest on their home turf. Total-wise, Cleveland's 3-1 to the under in their last 4. They're also 7-5 to the under overall for the year. I also failed to mention that Robinson, Murray, and Njoku are listed as questionable for the Browns. Now on the Cincinnati side, their last 3 games stayed under the number. They're also 6-0 to the under on the road this year. I'm going to purchase the half a point, buy it up, and take the Bengals plus 11 and the under 42.5 in that game. Before we go ahead and move on, just want to take a quick timeout and welcome you to the show. Got some lines of personal leans out for NFL Week 14. But before we dive into some more of that, I just want to quickly remind you to check me out on my website at patreon.com/BrockPage, where we are currently hitting at 65% for the entire college football season on that website. We do daily premium selections on that site beginning at just $1.99 per month. We have a bunch of different memberships, tiers, and packages that you can subscribe to. And at the end of the show, I'm going to explain to you the difference between what we do here on YouTube and that Patreon website. If you want to check out my current record on Patreon, you can do that right now. It's right on the homepage. All you got to do is click the link in the description section below. That's patreon.com/BrockPage. All right, let's go ahead and dive back into some more free lines of personal leans right here on YouTube. All starts Eastern Standard Time. And on deck, we've got the Dolphins taking on the Jets. And that's going to be a 1 o'clock Eastern kickoff in that matchup there. The Dolphins are not favored on the road. The Jets are minus 6.5, totals 44. Saw a 1-point fade of New York and movement downward on the total. The Jets open 7.5 down to 6.5. Total open 44 and a hook down to 44 even. 64% are leaning Miami, 79% shaded toward the over. Right now the Dolphins are plus 215 on the money line. The Dolphins are also 3-2 straight up in their last 5. They've successfully covered the number in 6 out of their last 8 as well. Minka Fitzpatrick, Ryan Fitzpatrick, sorry about that. Fitzpatrick, he's completing 63% of, I don't know why I thought of Minka. I mean, obviously Minka played for the Dolphins earlier in the year, but anyway, Ryan Fitzpatrick, the bearded one, he's completing 63% of his passes, 13 touchdowns on the year. Devontae Parker, 854 yards receiving, 16 yards per reception, 6 touchdowns through the air for him. Now the Jets on the other side, they rank in the bottom 5 in scoring, bottom 3 in passing, bottom 3 in rushing. They're also just 5-7 against the spread overall for the year, bottom 10 in pass yards allowed. Now total-wise, the Jets are 2-0 to the under in their last couple of games, 67% to the under at home. Meanwhile, Miami, 3 out of their last 5 on the road, stayed under the number themselves. I'm going to purchase the hook, buy it up, and take Miami plus 7 and the under 44 in that game. Next matchup, Denver taking on the Texans. And that's going to be a 1 o'clock Eastern kickoff in Houston. The Texans are the 10.5-point favorite, total at 41 and a hook. We saw a half a point move toward Houston and movement upward on the total. The Texans open as the 10-point favorite, up to minus 10.5. Total open 41, up to 41 and a hook. 72% are leaning Houston. And at the moment, Denver's plus 410 on the money line. The Broncos have successfully covered the number in 4 out of their last 5. They also rank in the top 10 in points allowed, top 5 in pass yards allowed. Derek Wolfe has 7 sacks on the year, 8 tackles for loss. He is listed as questionable, so keep an eye on him to see if he'll, see some action this Sunday. Now, Justin Simmons in that secondary, he's got 3 interceptions on the year, 10 pass breakups, 70 tackles on the season for this Denver squad. The Broncos are top 10 in yards allowed per play, top 10 in rushing yards allowed on the road. Top 10 in rushing yards on the road on the offensive side of things. Philip Lindsay has 766 yards on the ground and 5 touchdowns. Now, Miller, Wolf, James, and Reed are all listed as questionable for the Broncos. Meanwhile, Houston on the other side, they failed to cover in 4 out of their last 6. They are covering just 33% of their games at home this year, and they rank in the bottom 5 in pass yards allowed, bottom 10 in yards allowed per play. Blackson, Conley, Watkins, and Qt, they're all listed as questionable for this Sunday's action. Now, total-wise, 4 out of Houston's last 8 did get over the total. Meanwhile, 3 out of Denver's last 4 got over the number themselves. I'm going to purchase the half a point, buy it up, and take Denver plus 11 in the over 41.5 in that matchup. Next game, Colts taking on the Bucs. That's going to be a 1 o'clock Eastern kickoff in Tampa Bay. The Bucs are -3 at home, total 48.5. Now we did see a 2-point move toward Tampa Bay and movement downward on the total. The Bucs opened the betting as the 1-point favorite. They're up to -3. Total open 50.5, down to 48 and a hook. 59% are leaning Buccaneers, 62% shaded toward the over. Right now the Colts are plus 140 on the money line. Indy has dropped 4 out of their last 5 games. They're also just 2-4 against the spread in their last 6. They're ranked in the bottom 3 in passing on the road, bottom 10 in road scoring. They're also in the bottom 10 in offensive yards per play on the road as well. Now the Bucs, believe it or not, winners in 3 out of their last 4. They're also 2-0 against the number in their last couple of games. They rank in the top 5 in scoring, top 5 in passing. Jameis Winston, believe it or not, as many picks as he's thrown for over 3,600 yards thus far in the year. He's averaging 323 yards per game. He's thrown for 22 touchdown passes, and this Tampa Bay squad ranks in the top 3 in home passing. Now, Godwin and Evans are over 1,000 yards apiece through the air. They also have 16 touchdowns between the two of them. Tampa Bay ranks in the top 3 in rush yards allowed. That's going to bode well for them as Marlon Mack is out for the Colts. Tampa Bay, 12th in yards allowed per play at home. Shaq Barrett, 14.5 sacks. I feel like nobody's talking about this guy. Once again, Shaq Barrett, 14.5 sacks on the year, 17 tackles for loss, 1 interception, and 6 forced fumbles. Now, Dean, Miller, and Nelson are questionable. Meanwhile, for Indianapolis, Hilton and Campbell are questionable as well. Now, total-wise, we're looking at an Indy squad who's 60% to the over in their last 5. They're also 7-5 to the over for the season. 9 out of Tampa Bay's last 10 got over the number. They're also 80% to the over at home. Give me the Bucs -3 and the over 48.5 in that game. Next matchup, Detroit taking on Minnesota. 1 o'clock Eastern kickoff in that game. The Vikings are the 13.5-point favorite, total at 42 and a hook. We saw a 1-point move toward Minnesota and movement upward on the total. The Vikings open as the 12.5-point favorite. They're now up to -13 and a hook. Total open 42, up to 42.5. 67% are leaning Detroit. 88% shaded toward the over. Right now the Lions are plus 640 on the money line. They're also just 3-8-1 overall for the year. Losers in 8 out of their last 9. Detroit ranks in the bottom 10 in points allowed, bottom 3 in pass yards allowed. They failed to cover in 6 out of their last 7 games. They rank in the bottom 5 in yards allowed per play, and they're 1-4-1 straight up away from home. Stafford, Melvin, Agnew, all questionable for the Lions. Minnesota has won 6 out of their last 7. That's right, they're 6-1 straight up in their last 7. They rank in the top 10 in scoring, top 5 in rush yards allowed, 5-0 at home this year. They're perfect, undefeated. Once again, 5-0 straight up at home. When it comes to this total, Minnesota's 5-1 to the over in their last 6. Detroit, 70% to the over in their last 10. Give me Minnesota -13 and a hook, and the over 42.5 in that game. Next matchup, it is going to be Redskins taking on the Packers. And that's going to be a 1 o'clock Eastern kickoff at Lambeau Field. Green Bay is the 13.5-point favorite in this one. Total 42 and a hook. We saw a 1-point fade of Green Bay and movement upward on the total. The Packers open 14.5, down to -13.5. Total open 42, up to 42 and a hook. 56% are leaning Green Bay, 82% shaded toward the over. Right now, Washington's plus 600 on the money line. They also rank in the bottom 10 in rushing. Let's try that again. Washington ranks in the bottom 10 in rushing. They're also last in offensive time of possession. They rank in the bottom 3 in scoring, bottom 3 in passing as well. The Skins are 3-9 straight up on the year, 5-7 against the spread in those 12 games. They also rank in the bottom 10 in points allowed. Green Bay, on the other side, winners in 6 out of their last 8. They're also 8-4 against the spread overall for the year, 67% against the spread at home. They rank in the top 10 in home scoring, top 3 in home yards per play. And Rodgers has thrown for over 3,000 yards this year, 22 touchdowns to just 2 interceptions. Aaron Jones has 14 total touchdowns, both rushing and receiving combined. Once again, 14 total touchdowns on the year for Aaron Jones. When it comes to this total, Green Bay 60% of the over in their last 10. 2 out of Washington's last 3 got over the number as well. I'm going to lean Green Bay minus 13.5 in the over 42.5 in that game. Next matchup, 49ers, Saints, 1 o'clock New Orleans. The Saints are the 3-point favorite in this one, total at 45. We saw a half a point fade of New Orleans and movement downward on the total. The Saints open 3.5 down to -3. Total open 45.5 down to 45 even. 68% are leaning 49ers, 77% shaded toward the over. Right now, San Fran is plus $1.45 on the money line. San Fran has lost 2 out of their last 4. They also failed to cover in 3 out of their last 5. Staley, Breida, Ford, and Pettis are all listed as questionable. The Niners rank in the bottom 10 in rush yards allowed, bottom 10 in rush yards allowed on the road as well. Now the Saints on the other side, they're in the top 10 in scoring, top 10 in yards per play on average. Drew Brees is completing 74% of his passes this year. He's averaging 256 yards per game passing. Michael Thomas, 6 touchdowns on the year. He's also averaging 108 yards per game. Alvin Kamara has over 1,000 scrimmage yards on the year already. And, Latavius Murray, 6 total touchdowns for him as well. Now, the Saints' defense has been really, really good. They rank in the top 3 in rush yards allowed, top 3 in defensive time of possession. Cam Jordan, 13.5 sacks on the year, 15.5 tackles for loss. Marcus Williams, 4 interceptions in that secondary, 12 pass breakups. And Von Bell, 1 interception, 2 forced fumbles, and 5 fumble recoveries. New Orleans has won 9 out of their last 10. They're 8-2 against the number in those 10 games, and they are very healthy right now. Total-wise, New Orleans, 3-2 to the under in their last 5. Meanwhile, their opponents, the 49ers, 2-0 to the under in their last couple of games, 67% to the under when traveling. I'm going to lean toward the home chalk in this one. Give me the Saints -3 and the under 45 in that game. Next matchup, Carolina taking on Atlanta. And that is going to be a 1 o'clock Eastern kickoff in Atlanta. The Falcons are the 2-point favorite at home. Totals of 48. We saw a 1-point move toward Atlanta and movement downward on the total. The Falcons open as the 1-point favorite. They're now up to -2. Total open 48.5 down to 48. 69% are leaning Atlanta. 55% shaded toward the under. Right now, Carolina's plus 105 on the money line. The Panthers, 6-4 against the spread in their last 10. That's good for 60% against the spread in those 10 games. They're also covering 67% of their games on the road. They're ranked in the top 10 in road scoring, top 10 in pass yards allowed on the road as well. Luke Kuechly has 103 tackles on the year, 2 interceptions. Jackson and Bradbury, 3 interceptions as well for the Panthers. Mario Addison, 9.5 sacks on the year. And, of course, Christian McCaffrey has over 1,800 combined yards from scrimmage. Unbelievable. This guy's a stud. Atlanta on the other side, 2-8 straight up in their last 10. 3-7 against the number in those 10 games. Bottom 3 in rushing, bottom 5 in points allowed. Matty Ice has been getting sacked a lot and hit a lot this year. Total-wise, Carolina, 8-4 to the over, 67% to the over when traveling. Give me the Panthers +2 and the over 48 in that game. Next matchup, it is going to be Chargers taking on the Jags. 4:05 Eastern kickoff in Jacksonville. The Chargers are the 2.5-point favorite on the road, total at 43. We saw a 1.5-point move toward Los Angeles and movement downward on the total. The Chargers open as the 1-point favorite. They're up to -2.5. Total open 44, down to 43. 64% are leaning Chargers, 56% shaded toward the under. Right now, the Jags are plus 130 on the money line. Jacksonville's also 11th in pass yards allowed, top 10 in defensive time of possession. Miles Jack, 66 tackles on the year, 3 tackles for loss, 1 interception. Josh Allen, 9 sacks on the year for Jacksonville, 2 forced fumbles, and 10 tackles for loss. Now, the Chargers on the other side, they've dropped 6 out of their last 8. They're also just 2-6 against the number in those 8 games. They rank in the bottom 10 in scoring, bottom 5 in rushing. The Chargers have failed to cover in 4 out of their last 6 away from home. They're in the bottom 10 in road scoring, 3-9 against the spread overall for the year. Now the Chargers are 70% to the under in their last 10. Jacksonville, 67% to the under at home. I'm going to purchase the half a point, buy it up, and take the Jaguars +3 in the under 43 in that matchup. Next game, Chiefs taking on the Patriots. 4:25 Eastern kickoff at Foxborough. The Patriots are the 3.5-point favorite at home, total at 49. We saw a half a point fade of New England and movement downward on the total. The Pats open as the 4-point favorite, down to -3.5. Total open 50.5, down to 49. 72% of the consensus are leaning toward Kansas City. 59% shaded toward the over. Right now, the Chiefs are plus $1.30 on the money line. The Chiefs have also successfully covered the number in 3 out of their last 4. They're covering 67% of their games when traveling this year. They rank in the top 3 in scoring, top 3 in passing. Patty Mahomes is completing 65% of his passes. He's thrown for nearly 3,000 yards already on the year. He's averaging 315 yards per game, 20 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and he's got a 79.6 QBR. Now his favorite target, the big tight end Kelsey, 923 yards on the year, 4 touchdowns, and Tyreek Hill, 16 yards per reception, 5 touchdowns for him. The Chiefs are 5-1 straight up on the road this year, top 3 in yards per play, top 10 in defensive time of possession as well. Tyrann Mathieu, the Honey Badger, 3 interceptions, 51 tackles for him. Now when it comes to the injury report, Kansas City's a little bit banged up at the running back position. LaShawn McCoy's good, but Damian Williams and Darrell Williams are listed as questionable, both of those gentlemen running backs for the Chiefs. Now, New England on the other side, they've dropped 2 out of their last 4. They failed to cover in 3 out of those 4 games. Jason McCourty, Karras, Harris, and Cowart are all listed as questionable for the Patriots. New England ranks in the bottom 10 in yards per play. They're 21st in rushing, and their offense is averaging 18 points per contest in their last 4 games. Total-wise, New England 6-3 to the under in their last 9. 67% to the under for the year. Kansas City 2-0 to the under in their last couple of games. They're also 67% to the under in their last 6 contests, taking on a member of the AFC. I'm going to lean toward the road dog in this one. I'm also going to purchase the half a point, buy it up, and take the Chiefs +4 in the under 49 in that game. Next matchup, Titans, Raiders, 4:25 Oakland. The Titans are -3, total 46.5. We saw a half a point move toward Tennessee and movement upward on the total. The Titans open 2.5 up to -3. Total open 46 up to 46 and a hook. 69% are leaning Titans. 51% shaded toward the over. Right now, Oakland's plus $1.35 on the money line. Oakland's lost their last 2 straight games. They also failed to cover in those 2 matchups. They scored just 12 total points in those 2 games combined, and they gave up 74 total points in those 2 games. Oakland ranks in the bottom 10 in scoring, bottom 5 in points allowed, bottom 10 in pass yards allowed. Tennessee, on the other side, winners in 5 out of their last 6. They're also 5-1 against the number in those 6 games. They rank in the top 10 in rushing, top 10 in points allowed. And when it comes to this total, Oakland's 3-0 to the under in their last 3. Give me the road chalk in this one. I'm leaning Tennessee -3 in the under 46.5 in that game. Next matchup, Steelers, Cards, 4:25 Arizona. The Steelers are the 1.5-point favorite on the road, total 44. Saw a half a point move toward Pittsburgh and movement downward on the total. The Steelers open as the 1-point favorite. They're now -1.5. Total open 45 down to 44. 64% are leaning Steelers, 77% shaded toward the under. Right now the Cardinals are plus $1.15 on the money line. The Cardinals are also just 3-8-1 overall for the year. They lost their last 5 straight games, right in the middle of a 5-game losing streak. They're bottom 10 in passing, bottom 3 in offensive time of possession. They're just 1-4-1 straight up at home this year. Bottom 3 in points allowed, bottom 3 in pass yards allowed. Now Pittsburgh on the other side, winners in 6 out of their last 7. They're also 8-2 against the spread in their last 10. That's good for 80%. They rank the top 10 in points allowed, top 10 in pass yards allowed. TJ Watt has 12.5 sacks on the year, 5 forced fumbles, and 3 fumble recoveries. Bud Dupree, 8.5 sacks for him, 14 tackles for loss. And Minkah Fitzpatrick, 5 interceptions, 2 fumble recoveries. This Pittsburgh squad ranks in the top 5 in yards allowed per play, and their defense is allowing just 14 points per game on average in their last 4. Now, Burns, Connor, and Juju are listed as questionable, but when it comes to this total, Pittsburgh is 80% to the under in their last 10. They're also 5-0 to the under on the road this year. I'm going to purchase the hook, buy it down, and take the Steelers -1 in the under 44 in that matchup. Next game, Seahawks, Rams. 8:20 Los Angeles. The Seahawks are the 2.5-point favorite on the road, total 46.5. We saw a 0.5 point fade of Seattle and movement downward on the total. The Seahawks open -3, down to -2.5. Total open 47, down to 46 and a hook. 57% are leaning Seattle, 82% shaded toward the over. Right now the Rams are plus $1.15 on the money line. The Rams rank in the bottom 10 in rushing, bottom 5 in offensive time of possession. They've dropped 2 out of their last 4, and they rank in the bottom 10 in scoring at home. A couple more things to add about the Rams that are disparaging. They rank in the bottom 10 in points allowed at home, and they rank in the bottom 3 in defensive time of possession at home. Now Seattle, they're right in the middle of a 4-game winning streak. They're also 7-1 straight up in their last 8. They've successfully covered the number in 5 out of their 6 games away from home this year, and they rank in the top 5 in road scoring. Russell Wilson is just shy of 3,000 yards passing. He's averaging 292 yards per game, 24 touchdowns to just 3 interceptions. He's got a 73.3 QBR. Chris Carson, 879 yards on the ground, 4 touchdowns. He's averaging 80 yards per game rushing. Tyler Lockett, 831 yards receiving, 6 touchdown catches, 76 yards per game. He's averaging as well. Seattle ranks at the top 10 in rush yards allowed, top 10 in points allowed on the road. Bobby Wagner leading the charge with 105 tackles. He also has 5 tackles for loss. Now, when it comes to the injury report, Jadeveon Clowney has been ruled out. We will not see Clowney, and Nico Thorpe is listed as questionable. Now, total-wise, Seattle 60% to the under in their last 5. 6 out of the Rams' last 7 stayed under the number. The Rams are also 67% to the under at home. I'm going to purchase the 0.5 point, buy it down, and take another road team. Give me Seattle -2 and the under 46.5 in that game. And we're going to slide to our next and final matchup for the show. It is going to be Giants-Eagles, 8:15 South Philly. The Eagles are -8.5, total 47. We saw a 0.5 point move toward Philly and movement upward on the total. The Eagles open as the 8-point favorite, up to -8.5. Total open 46.5, up to 47. 51% are leaning Eagles, 77% shaded toward the under. Right now the Giants are plus 330 on the money line. Now the Giants have successfully covered the number in 3 out of their 6 games on the road. They rank in the top 10 in road passing, top 10 in rush yards allowed on the road. Barkley has over 800 scrimmage yards on the year, 3 total touchdowns. Darius Slayton, 505 yards receiving, 5 touchdown receptions for him. And Janoris Jenkins has 4 interceptions, 14 pass breakups, and 48 total tackles. Now the Eagles are right in the middle of a 3-game losing streak. They've also dropped 5 out of their last 7 games. They're just 2-5 against the spread in those 7. They rank in the bottom 10 in yards per play, 20th in passing at home. They gave up 37 points to Miami yesterday. Jordan Howard's questionable. Sidney Jones questionable as well. Philadelphia 3-1 to the under in their last 4, 67% to the under at home. I'm going to purchase the 0.5 point, buy it up, and lean toward another road team. Give me the Giants +9 and the under 47 in that game. All right, let's go ahead and dive into our quick pick recap brought to you by patreon.com/Brock Page, where once again we are hitting at 65% for the entire college football season. I like the Giants +9, under 47. Seattle -2, under 46.5. Tennessee -3, under 46 and a hook. Pittsburgh -1, under 44. Kansas City +4, under 49. Jacksonville +3, under 43. Green Bay -13.5, over 42 and a hook. New Orleans -3, under 45. Miami +7, under 44. Tampa Bay -3, over 48.5. Minnesota -13.5, over 42 and a hook. Denver +11, over 41 and a hook. Cincinnati +11, under 42 and a hook. Carolina +2, over 48. Buffalo +6 over 43.5. And last but certainly not least, I like Chicago +4 and the under 43 in that game. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me. Once again, don't forget to check me out on patreon.com/BrockPage, where once again we are 65% for the entire college football season on that website. Now, a lot of folks will ask me, what's the difference between what you're doing here on YouTube and your Patreon page? I can get the information for free right here on YouTube. That's a great thought. That's a great consideration. But a lot of folks will ask me, what's the difference between Patreon and YouTube? And I tell them this. What we do here on YouTube is we handicap every single game on the board, both the side and the total. And if you were to bet your hard-earned money that way on every single game, side and total, you are guaranteed 100% to lose in the long run. And as a matter of fact, you're probably going to end up losing in the short run as well. The books are too sharp, they're too smart, they have too much money, and the math is always against you. So what we do on Patreon is we really focus in on 3 to 4 premium selections per day. They're high percentage selections, games that I personally have action on. And what we do is, we focus in on those games, those high percentage games. They're personal plays of mine. And I'll tell you this much. My current record on Patreon is a whole lot better than it is on YouTube, handicapping every single game side and total. And you can actually check out my record for free right now. All you have to do is click the link in the description section below. That's patreon.com/BrockPage. All right, let's go ahead and dive into our Spanish edition, also known as our Edición en Español. Yo tengo Gigantes con puntos y los bajos, Seattle -2 y los bajos, Tennessee -3 y los bajos, Pittsburgh -1, Pittsburgh -1 y los bajos, Kansas City con puntos y los bajos, Jacksonville con puntos y los bajos, Green Bay -13.5 y las altas, New Orleans -3 y los bajos, Miami con puntos y los bajos, Tampa Bay -3 y las altas, Minnesota -13.5 y las altas, Denver con puntos y las altas, Cincinnati con puntos y los bajos, Carolina con puntos y las altas, Buffalo con puntos y las altas, y finally, Chicago con puntos y los bajos. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me. Once again, don't forget to check me out on Patreon. But I got to thank you for joining me right here on YouTube. I really hope you enjoyed all this great free content, all this great free information. Happy Monday to you. Best of luck to you. And, I look forward to seeing you on patreon.com/BrockPage.